From Detroit's North End, this is your Daily Detroit for November 7th, 2019. I'm Sareytales. Sven Gustafson will join us later in the show. Today, the Detroit Institute of Arts is asking for a renewal of their millage 2 years early. We have more information on when Founders will reopen their tap room in the Cass Corridor and what they plan on doing next. A local restaurant group has been sold to a New York company. There's more money for home repairs in the city of Detroit. And Sven talks with artist Sarey Ruden. She's the creator of Sareytales. They're pieces of art inspired by the terrible, creepy, and cruel messages she gets while dating online. It's an eye-opening conversation. So let's get right to it after we thank our members like Carol, who joined us at patreon.com/dailydetroit. They help us cover the region we love without fear or favor. Independent media needs independent funding, so join us for just a few bucks a month at patreon.com/dailydetroit. The Detroit Institute of Arts is a top-notch art museum, and historically, like many of our cultural gems, has been underfunded. That changed 8 years ago thanks to a regional millage that gave free admission to all who live in Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne counties. It also gave the museum a secure source of funding. At the time, museum officials planned to build an endowment to help make up the millage difference and not go back to voters. That plan has changed as the DIA is now asking for a millage renewal in 2020, 2 years before the current 10-year millage expires. So what's different? Well, for one, in that time, the city of Detroit went through bankruptcy and a good amount of the foundation support that the DIA was hoping to tap got used for the city's bankruptcy. Before this officially goes on the ballot, the Art Institute Authority in each county needs to agree to put it there. Each county could decide to opt in or opt out. I have a couple quick thoughts on this, and I want to have someone from the museum on the show to talk about this one for sure. I'll be the first to say that I don't like how this has kind of popped up. I remember that promise, and knowing Southeast Michigan's bad history of funding the arts, I was kind of nervous and skeptical of the pledge to not come back for funding from the beginning of this thing. But I will say that if we can't fund an art museum, what exactly can we do? I know that roads are a priority, but this amount, 0.2 mils, it wouldn't be enough to get anywhere near fixing the roads. And I know that people feel overtaxed, but museums are part of what makes a region special. And the museum, they do a ton of outreach and educational programs. Many more people should go see the Late Friday Nights. It's a really cool event where they open the museum into the evenings and take advantage of something that you can just go to anytime for no money. Big picture, we already have enough trouble retaining talent and young people to stay here. If we pull the plug on funding a museum, well, I just don't know what to tell you. The museum millage easily passed in 2012 in Oakland and Wayne counties, but passed by a tiny amount in Macomb. To me, that's not surprising, as many in Macomb view themselves as separate from the rest of the region. To be frank, I hear about that all the time in my inbox. If that's true, maybe that meme that it's going around is also true, and Kid Rock should stop claiming Detroit and say where he's really from, the son of a wealthy car dealer in Romeo. Winters here suck. Maybe if there's no museum, we'll all sit around a TV and drink natty lights. Sounds like a region everyone would want to live in. We now know more about the future of Founders Tap Room in Detroit. A press release from the organization says they've decided to reopen the facility on Charlotte Street in early 2020. Founders will also donate 100% of the profits from the reopened tap room to charities and community organizations through at least 2022. The company says they're hiring a new general manager, and staff members who had been working there at the time of the temporary closing will continue to be paid through the end of 2019. Considering the rest of the service industry, that's pretty generous. They've also hired Buzz Thomas to help consult them on next steps. He's a longtime advocate and political operator in the city of Detroit. Longtime listeners of the podcast will know that Founders closed the tap room after fallout from a leaked deposition as part of a racial discrimination lawsuit. That lawsuit has been settled out of court. A Southfield-based restaurant group that owns 64 Buffalo Wild Wings in 5 states has been sold to a New York firm. Diversified Holdings has been financially struggling as of late, and they sold to ICV Partners for $130 million in cash. Diversified lost $5 million in the last year, with almost half of that in the fourth quarter. Growth is tapering off for the fast casual dining segment, once a darling of the restaurant business. Buffalo Wild Wings as a whole has been one of the lower performers, actually posting a 1% sales drop, according to industry website fastcasual.com. The whole go visit a restaurant thing is changing too. The biggest growth segment in the industry seems to be what they call off-premise, meaning delivery and food ordered by apps. Here's a quick story, but a cool one I wanted to highlight. A new round of funding has been added to the city of Detroit's 0% home repair loan program for low to mid-income Detroiters and those in challenged neighborhoods. Bank of America has added $1.5 million to the fund that provides between $5,000 and $25,000 to Detroit homeowners, interest-free for 10 years. To see if you qualify, go to DetroitHomeLoans.org. Before we get into this next conversation, I wanted to take a moment to warn our listeners. Although it doesn't include any of the 7 dirty words that George Carlin talked about, it does include adult content and subjects that may trigger some listeners. So proceed with care for yourself.
Our guest is Sarey Ruden. She's the founder and creator of Sareytales, which is an art project and a business that explores kind of the dark side of online dating. Sarey, welcome to Daily Detroit.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. So you just had your time on the stage here at TEDx Detroit. Nice job, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Were you nervous?
Oh, my gosh. I hardly remember anything I said.
Really?
I blacked out, I think.
Well, you did a great job.
Okay, good.
I couldn't tell. I mean, you looked confident and everything.
Okay, well, that's all that matters.
Yeah. So, as I said, Sareytales is the name of your company and kind of an art project,
Yes.
right? Because you are a visual artist. Tell us, I mean, rather than me describe it, tell us about Sareytales and what it is.
Sareytales is the art of online dating. It's contemporary pop art that is all inspired by the messages that I receive on dating apps.
When did you start it? Like, take us back to when you kind of got this idea. I mean, you are a visual artist by
by trade. Yep, I'm a graphic designer, went to art school, so this is kind of my wheelhouse. And then I am also single and have been single for quite a while.
Right, and you're based here in Detroit.
Based in Detroit, so that's also another wrinkle that almost all of these messages that I am sharing and all the art that has been inspired by them are from local guys. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of waiting for the day when one of them is like, hey, I said that. I'll wait when that happens, then I know something good's happening, I guess. But
it has yet to happen.
It has not happened. I feel like they're not coming to TEDx and like art fairs and stuff.
So talk a little bit about kind of the content and the things that you're using, for your art. Like,
sure.
Because these are not happy outcomes on a dating app, Tinder or whatever.
No.
It's
the dark side. It's the dark side of dating. I mean, it's taking basically the worst of the worst. It's all the messages that I've received and other people. I take submissions. I can't do all the work. And it's basically when guys are rejected on dating apps or when they just don't get a message back, it's the behavior that kind of happens after that. It's that knee-jerk reaction, or sometimes it's just an unsolicited message from a guy that feels like they need to tell you why you suck. So it's all these negative insults that I've kind of recontextualized into works of art. So it's taking those words and kind of exploring what they mean to me. And the humor in it, I think, is what makes them so impactful, because you kind of read these words and you're like, ooh. And then you see the art and you're kind of like, ah. And it's that contrast that I think is what people find interesting.
Yeah. So I'm on your website and I'm looking at a couple of examples
Mm-hmm.
here. One is like the magic 8-ball.
Yes.
That everybody remembers from when they were kids. And it says, your biological clock has tick-tocked away. Here's another one of an ice cream cone tipped upside down, so the ice cream's melting, and it says, my little guy isn't getting hard.
Mm-hmm.
So these are obviously like you've gotten a lot of messages like these from
oh my God.
prospective dating.
I have an archive of messages. They're categorized. They are actually, I'm in the process of working with a researcher at University of Kentucky who's going to go through these messages and like tag them and figure out like what are these triggers, like why are men acting like this, what is their response to certain words in my profile or to certain things I say when they're rejected. There's a lot going on here.
Is your sense, like, what's your sense of how common this is on these apps?
It's all too common. I think that's part of the popularity. There's tons of Instagram accounts that just share screenshots, which is a component of what I do, but then I take it a step further and create art out of it. But I think that there is so much of this. I mean, it's just basically every it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon.
So why create art out of it? Like, what's the idea, or what sort of like sparked that idea for you to do this?
It kind of, I was getting these messages. I was feeling pretty crappy. They were hurtful, and I didn't want to hold on to that anymore. I kind of wanted to change the narrative, and I was like, how can I do that? And I just fell back on my design background, and I just started making, in the beginning, more like posters and typographical treatments and more simple things, and the art has evolved into more sculpture and multimedia, and I've really started exploring different things with my art, and it's really helped me grow as an artist and as a person.
Is it a way to kind of I don't know.
It's cathartic.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
is it to deal with these and kind of overcome it in a way?
Oh my gosh,
turn the tables in a way.
Exactly. It's kind of like revenge, but not in a bad way. It's kind of like getting the last word with their own words, like a taste of their own medicine, but my version of it.
Now, in your TED Talk this morning, you actually went through, I mean, you talked about working with the researcher at the University of
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Yeah. You actually went through and kind of put some of these different messages in categories, like psychological categories. I mean, do you have like a psychology background? I mean, because I was really struck by that. Like, wow, you have really done a lot of thinking.
No, and I hope that, I mean, I'm sure there are doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists in there. They're like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And I'm definitely not a professional. This is just based on my experience. I've kind of grouped these guys on their behavior, what I think it means. So like, gaslighting, for instance. Like, it's just kind of my interpretation of it through the lens of online dating. It's not medical.
Yeah. But it's really interesting. I mean, so talk about a couple different categories, like some of the more common ones.
Sure.
Maybe.
Well, the sexual harasser is pretty much the most relatable, I feel like. You know, that ranges from the dick pics to just crude messages. Like the one I shared was, I'd tear that butt up. So that was completely unsolicited. And the main thing here is the context. This is not between a friend or boyfriend, girlfriend. This is not any, I don't know this guy. And that's his opening message. So just because something happens, though, in the digital space doesn't mean it's not violating. It doesn't mean that it's not real. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to get across, that, yeah, this was just online and it's anonymous. But what happens when you go on a date with this person in real life? Like, how does that behavior translate? Another one is the nice guy. I've noticed that so many of these men, when I'm speaking to them, say, but I'm a nice guy. You should never have to say you're a nice guy. That's an instant red flag. It should come across in your words and in your actions. If you have to say you're a nice guy, there's something going on.
Then you're probably not.
And I have data as far as my experience goes. As soon as I say I'm not interested and they say, but I'm a nice guy, the next thing they do is say something terrible, or I've gotten dick pics after they say they're a nice guy in the same frame. So it's just insane.
One of the other things I guess that strikes me about your work and listening to you talk is, like, obviously this is dark subject matter, and it's got to be very depressing. I mean, how do you kind of stay above the fray? Like, are there days where you feel, just kind of absolutely rotten and awful?
No, I think there must be something like very wrong with me, because it inspires me. Like, it's gotten to the point now where when I do get a bad message, I'm kind of like, ooh, what can I do with this? It's like a challenge. And there's days when I don't go on, I don't check my mail, and that's just an easy way to kind of turn it off. And when I want to go back on, I look at my messages, and I'm cognizant of it not becoming too toxic for me, because it is a fine line between the artwork and my personal life. But I feel like I've learned to protect myself and like guard myself, where I don't let the words get to me, because I know kind of I have an outlet for it.
And of course, it's a opportune time in a way. I don't want to sort of phrase it that way, but it is the Me Too era.
Yep.
You know, we've had this string of, Harvey Weinstein, Roger Ailes, Fox News chief executive, so forth. In a way that kind of gives you...
It's timely. And coincidentally, I started this right in September of 2016, so right before Trump got elected. And I don't know if it was just like that collective unconscious, like where I was inspired to do this and Trump got elected, but it all kind of collided into like this perfect storm of men behaving badly and me starting this on my own. And it just kind of, it's worked, unfortunately and fortunately.
Now, your handle, I think, is Sareytales. It's Sarey Tales.
Tales.
Right.
Not the other kind of tale. So it's like a play on fairy tales.
Right. And you're active on all the social network places and everything. Where you don't have a brick and mortar storefront or anything like that? Or do you do regular gallery shows? I mean, where can people find you IRL?
In Etsy is the best place. It's if you go to Etsy and shop or and search Sareytales, you'll find me. I do have different gallery openings throughout the year, just randomly. Right now, the next thing I will be a part of is an art fair called Superfine in New York City. So that's not Detroit, but hopefully I'll be at the Dirty Show again this year. I haven't submitted anything yet, but deadline doesn't close till December.
And that's in February.
That's
usually.
in February,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping for the next couple months maybe just to regroup and think about what's next.
I'm just curious. Do you still do online dating?
Yeah, no, I'm getting messages right now.
So you do. Not everybody's awful. Like it hasn't driven you off the networks altogether.
No, absolutely not. Like, all it takes is one person, and it's kind of fun. Like, I still get terrible messages, and I take a screenshot and put it in my archives, and then I'm still also talking to guys. I'm using the apps to their fullest.
Yeah. Well, very interesting work that you're doing, and keep it up. How long do you think you want to keep kind of doing?
I don't know. That's a good question, because it's like if I start dating someone or get married, like, wouldn't that be weird if I'm doing this or kind of inauthentic? So I don't know. Right now, I don't think I'm going to stop, but maybe it'll evolve into something different, but I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Sarey Ruden of Sareytales. Thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you.
If I may take a minute on a personal note, thank you to all the people that we met, longtime listeners and new ones as well. It was really special to be on the stage of the Fountain Ballroom at TEDx Detroit yesterday. Thanks for the selfies and the words of encouragement and the stories. It means a lot to our tiny little team that tries to make a lot happen. And of course, thank you for being a part of your daily Detroit. I'm Sareytales. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.